It's 6.
Are you ready? Everybody's wanting to go.
Put 6:58 or 5:58 then.
Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, please.
Council workshop meeting, Monday, February 7th, 2022, 6 p.m. Hydrich. Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Patke.
Here.
Pettit. Here. Reed.
Here.
Scornia. Here. Solentrep. Wessels.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Will all the committee members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the meeting dated January 3rd, 2022? Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Pettit?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Scornia? Wessels?
Aye.
Having read the minutes, are there any questions or comments?
Not, I'll make a motion. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Holtmeyer, to approve the minutes from our last meeting dated January 3rd. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the minutes. Thank you.
Presentations, International Shoe Factory wrap-up.
Sal?
Yes, good evening, Council. I just wanted to come tonight and give everyone a brief wrap-up and a status report on the International Shoe Factory. Ed Schmeltz of the ELS Properties regrets that he couldn't be here. He's coaching his daughter's, basketball game tonight. But last week, we actually have officially signed over the deed for that from ELS Properties to the city for the 11-year tax abatement for that. And so it's been 2 years now since we went over that agreement and approved that. And so I wanted to give a status of all that, and I did request some information from them. So when we started that discussion with ELS Properties, there were a couple milestones in mind or goals in mind from the city that for our participation. And in that development agreement, there was a couple things they needed to do. The first was to invest at least $6 million, provide at least 80 residential units, and it had to be complete by December 31st of 21. And so they did submit their receipts showing that. I think they were closer to about $9 million, so they were well above the investment amount that was needed. They added 84 units, so they hit the capacity there, and the move-in date for Phase 2 was December 20th. So they were right before the deadline there, and they turned in all those receipts before the end of the year. And so we sent those over to Gilmore Bell. We checked with Mark Piontek, and there was no need to go back with any ordinance to accept that deed of release, but we have gotten that recorded last week. But some of the goals that we wanted to achieve when participating in this was the first time we worked with a developer for a residential redevelopment for Chapter 100. Obviously, we wanted to repurpose an historic structure. That building was constructed, obviously, as the International Shoe Factory, and all the homes around it were actually developed by the owners of the International Shoe Factory and sold off to finance that development. So that is unique in itself for how the development, how the neighborhood was created. The second was to revitalize the neighborhood as a whole, that taking up an entire block there and had been vacant since 1964. Obviously, it was long blighted. There was minor improvements done to the building, but for a long time it was neglected, windows falling in, and really put in a significant amount of blight on the neighborhood. So cleaning that up, fixing the entire block. And lastly, one of the goals in our comprehensive plan from the 2013 comprehensive plan was to provide entry-level housing for our citizens. We have seen an increase since 2013 of a lot of senior housing and single-family housing, but nothing that really opens up the market for young professionals or people who have just recently graduated college. We had not seen a lot of apartment development, and so this checked that goal in there. And so I did ask ELS Properties to give us some information on the success of that. So with 84 units, they are 100% occupied. They have 0% vacancy. They have 10 people on the waiting list already to move in as people, they've actually already said they've had their first round because Phase 1's been open a year of people actually filtering through, and they've continued at 100%. 82% of the units are occupied by people 35 and under. So that's 69 out of the 84. So I think that shows a great deal of success in achieving that goal of workforce housing and entry-level housing for our young professionals. So again, I just wanted to give you an update on that, and I think shows that it demonstrated it was a successful project and achieved the goals that we were wanting to in the beginning. So.
Sal, do you know what the range of the rent is on those?
Yeah, so it ranges from 800 to 1,100, depending on one bedroom or two bedroom. There are some studios that are a little bit less than 800, I believe, on phase 2. I don't have the price on that, but one bedroom is 800 to 850, and two bedroom, two bath is 1,000 to 1,100.
It's a great thing for our neighborhood.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
so it's really cleaned it up.
Real quick, Sal, talking about young professionals, how is the Locust Street, is that all sold out too?
It is. So we have issued the last permit. There are 27 homes there. We issued the last one the first week of the year, first week of January. So they're not moved in on all of them yet. And if you drive through, I think there's 3 of them that are under construction. But that was also, there was obviously a development agreement with that. We have reached out to them and told them when they get to finalizing that, you know, we want to get a report on the success of that project as well. Because those are owner occupied, the information we can receive on who bought them is a little bit more private, but we would like to kind of see, the whole point of that as well was hopefully to get some workforce housing, some entry-level positions, but more on the owner occupied side. So hopefully in March we'll get a report from them on whatever they can provide. So.
Thank you.
Well, it's
Right.
good to see that wrapped up.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. He's mentioned he'd be willing to do another one, so
Yeah.
find another shoe factory building.
Yeah,
So,
need to find another one, so.
And then lastly, while I'm up here, just so I don't have to come back up, we are, for the Planning and Zoning Department, speaking of our comprehensive plan, we do that every 10 years, so 2013 was the last one. We've had budgeted to do our 2023 10-year plan. That study is actually completed in 22. So we went out for proposals on that. We received 4 competitive bids. We have decided, our Planning and Zoning Commission is going to act as the interview committee for that. All 4 interviews are scheduled for next week on Wednesday and Thursday from 3 to 5 on both days. So the goal would be to select a firm pretty quickly, have them have a contract on the ordinance, on your agenda for the first meeting in March, and that way it gives our firm a solid 9 months to put together public input, online surveys, and talk to department heads and get that plan going. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of input from P&Z and the council as we move forward, but that's a big project we do every 10 years, so I'm excited to move forward with that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Report of department heads, administration department, code amendment, electric bicycles. Basically, what you have in front of you is an ordinance that came down from the Missouri State Legislature, and it's a change to add a section of the code to add electrical bicycles as a definition into the code. So I just need approval. Pass it on.
Mark has reviewed this, correct?
Mark has reviewed it, yes. I contacted Mark to let him know what was going on, that we received this from General Code, who takes care of our codes for our website. He reviewed it, and then he said that the only thing that needed to be added was the electric bicycles.
Okay, are there any questions or comments?
Make a motion.
Second.
Moving on.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Pettit, to move this item on to council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you've moved it on. Thank you.
Reuse of ARPA funds.
Late last week, we received word from Mark Piontek, and he passed it along to myself on the use of ARPA funds. And if you'll remember, back in May, we presented the same presentation to you after reviewing projects with department heads, et cetera. We came up with a list of projects that we felt were worthy of utilizing those funds. And if you'll remember, there was 4 categories, and I'll go into those here in a little bit. First off, just to kind of review a couple of these numbers. we have received the first payment of this. I believe we received 1.2, was that 1.3? Yeah, half of the amount, 1.2 and a half, something like that. And another one, we'll receive another payment next year. We're considered a non-entitlement city, and the funds will have to be applied for, but we don't have to apply for funds through anybody, but we just have to account for how we spend it. So, in the past, and I've got this stuff crossed out, as you can see, because we had different categories. Basically, you had tourism, you had lost revenue, you had, let's see, I'm trying to think of what the other one, there was I think wages for employees, and then finally infrastructure expansions, primarily water, sewer, and broadband, if you wanted to. So now, what can the money be used for? All of the funds that the city receives through ARPA are essentially non-restricted and can be used for any city purpose. This ruling just came down last week. You might have read about this. I think the Missouri might have done an article on it. But basically, if you are a public entity that receives ARPA funds, the first $10 million that's received can be for anything that local government deems worthy of. And so there are a few restrictions like pensions and stuff like that you can't go ahead and do. I mean, Mark did mention those or whatever, but basically it kind of lifts those guidelines. So we don't have to spend those money in those four categories anymore. So with that, we've taken a look back at what we've spent, what we're looking to spend, and there is a large project that's looming, which is basically the HVAC system over here at the library that is significant. We are spending money quite a bit. Wayne and Nelson are here to go ahead. They can comment a little bit more on that a little bit later. But let me go through some of the categories of what we've had. That just talks about how we requested it. Tourism. You know, we did have a discussion about possibly a campground RV park at 9th and International, but that plan got scrapped. But there was $200,000 going towards that. We had Assist Downtown Washington Chamber with replacement of additional wayfinding signage. I'm going to be meeting with Tyler and JB again this week to see what their thoughts are on that. Improvements to the fairground ceiling and asphalt, we completed that. There was an additional $20,000 that we used out of this for that purpose. And then the replacement of the airport fueling truck, I think that's supposed to hopefully be arriving within a week or so over at our airport. That was something that we needed. As a matter of fact, it broke down, or there's a portion of it that we're not doing fuel sales out of it because we're waiting for the truck to go ahead and arrive here within a few days, hopefully. The amount on that was $187,650, because these numbers were approximate when we gave them to you back in May. Payment to the city employees, that was completed. We did that at the change of the budget year. It also included what we didn't have in the initial total was the fire department. And so we also added the volunteer fire department. Tim provided me with a list of, I don't want to get these terms wrong. There's active, non-active. I don't think that's the correct terms, but you get the gist of it. There are those that are more active than others, correct, Tim? There you go. Thank you, sir. So that was added to that, and that's the reason why that number is up where it is. That's approximate. I got some numbers from Mary, and I also checked them with Shauna, and it's in the ballpark. These are other funds these are lost revenue that we didn't get in 2020 as a result of having to go ahead and close down. You had the aquatic complex, you had the equipment, you had facility. The equipment that was towards the pool that actually was completed. I think we used those funds for that. If we haven't, it got put in, and we need to go ahead and make an adjustment for that. But you have facility rentals of $79,000, Camp Washington, et cetera. All of these funds, I've talked to Mary this afternoon, all of these just got put back into our reserves. Basically, they're sitting there until we spend those, but they've already covered those losses from that year. It's not to say that you can't go back and decide to go ahead and spend it yet. The only one on this, I think, that we had the library reciprocal agreement, the library passports. mandated COVID sick pay. This was, the last one was what we had requested the county, but at the time, they did not allow that. Economic development salary, we did complete that. We did go ahead and get that paid back. Now, the other bigger issues were water, sewer, and broadband investment. And so, broadband, we have discussed this, I think, internally to the point where we don't feel that there's something that we can do at this point. There is the possibility that they could go ahead and request funding through Franklin County, because Franklin County received, I believe, 22 million, 21 plus. Mary, do you have a number? I think it's like 22 is something that what I've heard. So again, they can spend up to the first 10 million on whatever project they deem, I guess, worthy in the commission's eyes. But then the rest of it, they still have to follow these categories. Ours, we don't have to worry about it because we're under the $10 million threshold. So, but they still have to go ahead and do that. And we have encouraged them to go ahead and seek, or others that we have talked to about trying to expand broadband either in the county or parts of the city, that there's funds that they could go ahead and request from the county. County doesn't have necessarily a program for it, but that doesn't mean that other entities can't go ahead and request if they'd like to go ahead and see those expanded throughout Franklin County. We had utility payment improvements in finance. That's still a project that we're looking for design that we're going to be bringing to you later. There was portions of this that we had already budgeted, but this would help that a little bit as well. The biggest ticket item on there, and don't have sticker shock over that, but that's on the high end of what we've received. We've gotten 2 estimates to go ahead and replace the HVAC system over there at the library. One is $650,000 approximately. The other one is all the way up to 1.1. I've gotten 2 of them. One has been from Gerald that Wayne received or whatever. We also had, it was CTS, and now they're Vergy, V-E-R, it's a hard word to say, V-E-R-E-G-Y, thank you. They came through again because they are the group, if you'll remember, that CTS was, that had us go ahead and do our energy efficiency for our lights and our replacement of our windows here at City Hall. They also did some HVAC work here within our building, et cetera. So they were aware of our facility. We asked them to come through, do a walkthrough, and give us an idea of what it would cost to go ahead and replace the whole system. And that's on the high end. So we don't know, we're not ready yet, but if council would, after discussion tonight, and again, this is just for discussion, we're not asking for any motion on anything tonight, but primarily to say you don't have the same restrictions that we told you that you had back in May as of last week. So that's on the high end.
So CTS is the one that gave you the high end?
Correct.
Because Gerald's the one that's been doing the work.
With that group, correct.
Gerald's been doing, correcting things that
Right.
are done wrong over there.
Correct.
So they have an idea what's going on.
And there's part of it that they had that I think the biggest difference from what I understand becoming a HVAC expert, not really, but I'm getting there. I haven't gotten my certificate yet. But anyway,
It takes a few years.
it takes a few years? Well, that's what apparently. The supply lines, or I don't know exactly what the ones that run the, if Gerald has indicated if you have to replace those, then their 650 goes up. I think what you see there, this 1.1, is what Vergy looked at and said, you got to replace all of those. These are wavy and that's
The one's
causing
the
you
total
problems.
replacement, and the other one's the Band-Aid it till,
I wouldn't say Band-Aid, but a partial replacement. How about that?
Well, supply and return lines, if they're in decent shape, they can stay.
That's
the
but
point.
I think that's the point, that's the problem that Vergy is saying, those have to go ahead and be replaced. And they're, now, we can go ahead and look at this. This is just, tonight, the purposes of tonight's discussion is that you are no longer pigeonholed into these 4 categories of funds that you were prior to last week. So you can use these other funds for these projects and something like this. And we really do not have anything budgeted long range for the library to go ahead and replace that. And for the record, that system is 10 years old.
I've seen 3 of you do this. Now, I work in HVAC, and I've never experienced that, so what's that supposed to mean?
I'll let one of our other certified mechanics come up.
Certified HVAC expert. Good Good evening, council, yeah. So we kind of do this because the input lines, what they're telling us is that, they expect them just to be gradual slope, and they say there's kind of waves in them, which allows the oil to build up and sit in them. That shouldn't be that, and that's what they're saying, that's what our lines look like. And that 650,000 quote was not including taking
Replacement of those.
out.
Correct.
And those, you're not 100% on anything ever, but those are definitely a possibility. It's a definite possibility that those lines are part of what's causing all the problems at the library.
Yeah, you need all that oil to get, and I can warn you right now that 10 foot of copper for that job is about $50 right now, so that's where they're coming up with the one.
Right.
It's going up. We all know that.
Everything's going up.
Yeah.
I guess one important thing to remember is the number I got from Gerald was from late July. So that number's probably gone up some since then. But they did not have an engineer. That was the guy I kind of deal with on all our stuff. He was kind of estimating for budget purposes, whereas CTS, they had an engineer come out, get up in the roof, look at it. And the range they kind of gave us was between 900,000 and 1.1. And so like Darren was saying, that was 1.1 is kind of on the high side. So, but that estimate's from January, whereas Gerald's is a kind of a rough estimate from August or end of July. So.
And again, that was for budget purposes, which we did.
And we're not awarding a contract or anything.
No.
Right.
This is just like I said.
We're not going to go back with the Daikin system, are we?
No.
This would be a replacement and would not.
I
be a Daikin
have,
system.
I just put all Mitsubishi in the grade school down there, and it's been wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have no problem. It's easy to work on.
10 years, doesn't seem like very long.
It's
Not.
It's not.
Well, it was installed and maintained wrong
This one.
from the start.
Well, ours too is only 10 years old, right?
Pardon?
Well, that's
Yeah,
what we're
it's 10
talking
years
about.
old.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about, is library, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the assumptions we had until recently was that we had to stick with a Dicon-like technology. But when the engineer came in, he found a beam at the library. He said with some reinforcements on it, you could put a unit on the roof. So that's kind of helped change, that widened our possible solutions to this.
Any idea how many square foot the library is? I mean, how much area are we talking about?
I don't know that answer.
Yeah, I have to look that
Two
up.
floors.
I know, that's a lot.
Over 12,000?
Okay.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you.
I mean, the $1 million seems like a hefty price tag, no doubt, but when you start talking 2 floors like that, that makes, it becomes a little bit more realistic, no doubt.
Is either of these companies the one that put the one that wore out in 10 years in? Okay.
No.
No, that was Peters. Company.
So, go ahead.
Well, so through all your slides, Darren.
Yeah, and I'm not finished. but
Okay,
that's
well,
okay.
okay,
I just
that's
sort
right. I was just kind of, how do you add them all up? I guess,
Yeah,
is all
that's
I
where
was-
I'm going. So basically, with that, you would have some of the funds that we haven't, if you want to pull back some of those out of reserve, you could increase the amounts that we're looking at for sanitary sewer extensions, both to the east and the west. And then you could also go ahead more for the water tower. Actually, that should be, I didn't change that water tower slide. That, I think we increased that by 120, so that should be like something like 360. And then you got your water extension east and west, adding on to that by another 50,000, about 125,000. With all of those, including the ones that we've completed, you're somewhere around 2.3 at least right now, even with the library HVAC replacement at 1.1 on the high end. So these are just some suggestions, but really I don't have an answer for you on replacement of the HVAC. We're going to have to get creative. We did put it in the budget for next year. Wasn't in this year's budget, but the price that we're paying for to keep that system up and running and keep the library open is very costly right now. So the sooner the better. And as we talked about, and as everybody knows with the supply chain, the concern would be is even if you get moving forward on this, you'd be looking at a wait possibly of even up to a year for certain parts. So I don't know.
I can tell you right now, we just ordered some big rooftop units and 36 weeks out.
Wow.
So you're close to a year.
Your copper price will double by then.
So, again, not asking for any major decision tonight, but we will have to go ahead and take a look. I'd like to get there, I think there's one other entity that we may have take a look at and give us their estimate. Obviously, this would all go out for bid if you guys would allow so at a later date, but we'd like to move on it quicker rather than later.
Any thoughts or comments?
I like the breakdown. I appreciate the presentation, Darren. And a lot of it makes sense. I hope that the broadband situation can be solved with the county funds rather than just scrap it for us completely. I think there is a definite short-term future need there. So if it's not part of our budget here, that we can be at least poke and prod the county that we can get that done here, or rather than just scrap it completely. But
well, and the problem that we had with it, Jeff, is the fact of just trying to get the return on the investment and the risk that you run to go ahead and pull customers away from the existing entities that are already providing internet service to your community. And so that's a big challenge. And it was different before when you had 4 categories that you could only spend the funds in, that being, broadband. Right. Then when you take those restrictions off of that and you've got other needs, obviously you got to go ahead and address those before you can consider that. So.
And the broadband possibility is a private entity.
There's private, well, they can go ahead, yes, correct. I mean, that's all the world. We don't have to be involved with that. That can be somebody else that comes in and wants to go ahead and take over a portion of the market if they can offer a better product than what's already existing out there.
Right.
Anyone else?
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, well, thank you.
Engineering Department 2022 Snap Tight Culvert Lining Project.
John?
Yes. Get that off here.
Okay, good evening, council. Try to get to this real quick. Okay, so within your packet and within the city council approval packet, there's a project, it's 2022 Snap Tight Culvert Lining Project. So the question you first get is, what is that? Approximately 3 months ago, we were made aware out at our recycling center in the police shooting range, we knew about this, but there were 2 pipes that actually penetrate that levee that provide protection from St. John's Creek during flood events, Missouri River rises, flash flood events, those type of things. Best I could tell, they were put in, I think, in the late 60s. They were completely rusted out on both ends. They were metal pipes that were put in. They've lasted a relatively long time. The flap gates, which actually close when the river is up to prevent water from backflowing in, were completely fell off into the actual creek itself. So really, you had very limited protection from a flooding event from the Missouri River or St. John's within that area. So there's concerns, obviously, for our recycling centers, concerns for we have lift stations. There's a couple of businesses in there as well. So we started looking at, okay, what can we do? Those things are 20, 25 foot deep. Digging one out and actually replacing it is not necessarily a good thing to do with compaction, those type of things. So there was a product that it's familiar with in the past. It's called Snap Tight. What it essentially is, it's pipe sections, pick a number, 4 foot long, whatever they are, that actually they snap together, and then use a come along or an excavator, and you push it into the existing pipe. So the existing pipe is 4 foot in diameter, 48 inches. We chose to go with a 36 inch, so a smaller pipe, but understand it's for draining, not necessarily flowing water through. And you push that pipe in as a liner, and then you actually bulkhead off with concrete both sides, and there's pump ports, and you pump grout into it to essentially put a pipe in a pipe and then fill the void with grout, okay? That can be done in approximately 5 days. It's a pretty quick project, doesn't take a lot of maneuvering to get this done. So we put some plans together, went out to bid. You could see the bids we received. multiple bids, one from Illinois, actually. We had an estimate approximately $140,000. The low bid came in quite a bit low at $102,500. That outfit is out of Villa Ridge. We were concerned about that with it being so low, so we did sit down with them, went through the project. The equipment you really have is an excavator, you have a grout pump truck, and then you have the material. The material provider is the one that provides the grout pump truck. That is approximately 90% of the job. That provider bid to each one of these contractors, okay? So that means that our risk here for anything goes relatively low. So we are recommending going with that low bid. It is a approximately 5 or 6 day project. There's access to it. Frozen ground is when we want to do this. And the material is ready to go on the job site. So they would mobilize in here in the next couple weeks, knock this project out, and then we would move on and then have that protection that as originally designed. It's unique. Army Corps of Engineers uses it pretty frequently, Missouri River, Mississippi River. So it's not like it's anything new in the industry.
How long is this thing?
These are 150 feet. There's 2 of them.
You're going to do them both?
Doing both? Yes, sir.
This includes both.
It's both. Yep.
Are they both right next to each other?
They're probably they might be 100 yards apart. So just 300 feet apart, something like that. But they're literally just pipe penetrations that drain the inside of the levee to the outside of the levee during low water conditions and then block backwater from flowing into the levee.
Did you mention some type of gate or something on
Yeah.
one side?
Yeah, flap gate will go on the river side. So what happens there is when pressure builds up on that, it actually, a gate closes. And then when it needs to drain, it opens back up again, provided there's no pressure on the inside. But that's all part of this as well. Replacement of that flap gate, those 2 flap gates. So kind of envision, it's like your cast in place, your CIP, your sewer line, 8-inch fiberglass sock. It's essentially the same thing, except you're manually pushing a pipe in a pipe and then literally grouting it shut.
When you said the pipe is, sorry, the existing pipe is rusted out.
CMP, yep. It's about-
This will still push through there even through that rust situation.
It's rusted out on the bottom.
Okay.
So yeah,
It's
it's.
not like it's half collapsed or anything.
No, we couldn't do it if it was collapsed.
Right.
So we actually went down there and took a look at it. And that's actually why we went with a 36 rather than a 48, because it gives you a little more tolerance. You got a foot to work with.
Well, and it gives you a little bit more grout around it also.
Yep.
So it's like a check valve, that gate?
It's on the inside, yep. Basically, yeah, it's exactly what it is, a check valve.
Or you're not really worried about the amount of water that's going to go through it because it's a 36 versus a 48?
No, because the reason for that is it's a drainage pipe rather than like, usually you design pipes for hydraulic flow to get as much water through as you possibly can. This just drains the area, and it's also smooth wall, which a smooth wall pipe actually has a higher flow rate than a corrugated pipe that has a bunch of turbulent flow. So those actually match up pretty good, 36 to a 48.
Where is it? I'd like to go see it.
Can you pull it up on the aerial?
Yeah, we can pull it.
Take Mark over there when I dig this up.
Take a field trip.
Drive here.
It's just due west of the recycle center.
Have them go out there and watch.
Go to the recycle center, and then you can
Due north
stop
of
with the
recycle
police, and you can shoot a pistol for a while, and then we'll go over there.
Go.
It's right next to the gun
Be
range.
good to go.
Good
Throw
time.
hatchets down there too?
Yeah.
Well,
Well, you never know.
All right, hold on, let me log in. I'll show you exactly where it's at.
Why, I didn't mean to take too much time.
No, it's
Way to go, Mark.
It's interesting.
2 seconds.
It won't take long.
it's a field trip, Mark.
Yep. Took you on a drive.
It's good to know these things, Mark.
I should have had this pulled up, I'm
It
sorry.
is. This could be a trivia night.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Recycling center, can you hear me? Yes. Recycling center's right here. If you go through the back, go to the police shooting range in the rear, you see this purple line right there? That's one of the pipes that goes underneath. It drains this area into St. John's, and there's another one right here. So it just drains the inside of the levee whenever it rains, essentially, and then it actually, when the river comes up, it'll cut that flow off so you don't flood the inside of the levee. So your levee actually provides protection. So it's,
Does it affect any of the property that we lease out to Jack, I guess it is?
it would positively affect them, because right now they don't have any flood protection at all with that flap gate not being there. So shooting range, has a higher risk of being underwater, and so does the ag ground next to it.
John, didn't we, when we discussed this, we thought that the pipes were put in years ago when the chamber went ahead and did the industrial park there, or was that prior to that, or was it related to that?
It was 100% related to that.
So remember those plans, Mark, that you called me up when I was economic development director, and you said, hey, come down here and look at these and see if you want any of these things? Well, that was all laid out in the lots down there for where Enduro used to be, et cetera, M&R plating and all of that, and that infrastructure was probably on those sets of plans.
Years ago, I wasn't paying close attention.
You weren't trying to vote
You're
about
supposed to
it.
memorize all
Good
of
thing
that.
you are now, Mark.
Thank you, though. Thank you. I'm gonna go down there. I wanna see that.
I can get you a schedule once we.
Got some connections.
Text you when they
So
show.
this gets paid for out of the stormwater fund. We have money budgeted for pipe repair. It would take the lion's share of that, so we're anticipating not having anything else go on within the city till then, but
Has to
if we
get
do,
done.
we can, it has to get done, and this is the time to do it
This
before.
is a good time before spring floods.
Correct.
I make a motion to move on to council.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Pettit, to move this item on to council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you've sent it on. Thank you.
Bulk trash collection contract change.
Okay, as promised at the last meeting, we did a presentation regarding the modification to how we collect Big Trash Week or bulk trash. If you recall, the bulk trash operation historically has always been a week in the spring and a week in the fall. We looked at ways to fix some issues with that, the picker situation, regional service. I do believe that your citizens were providing some sort of bulk service for everyone outside the city, not everyone, but for some outside the city. And then you also had to hold on to those items until those bulk or those big trash weeks occurred. This contract modification would change how that's done by allowing each resident 2 bulk items, which the definition of that has not changed. It's 2 bulk items, mattress, table, think of those things, per month on your individual last trash pickup of the month. So like everything with our trash services, worry about yourself, your calendar. If your recycle date is at, it's yours. This would be your last trash pickup of the month would have this service available to you. That would plan to start at the end of February, so it would be the last trash pickup for your individual self this February, and then it would continue March throughout the rest of the year. That adds up to 24 items a year, which to me seemed reasonable of what the intent of the Big Trash Week even was. So this is the contract modification. It is a no-cost contract modification. Everyone's geared up, ready to do this. There's been some coordination efforts with like stoves, white goods, those things with street department. So I think we got all those communication things figured out. I would anticipate a little bit of a transition period, but give us a call and we'll work through it.
John, also, all the dumpster locations?
sorry.
That's right, just go ahead.
Yeah, correct. So this would be everyone that is not serviced by a dumpster. Your apartment units, those are all dumpster services. Those would not change. It's the third week in,
April.
Third week in April, and it would be the third week in October, where you would still have bulk pickup just like you always had in the past. So there's really no mechanism for us to handle apartment complexes, and that's how we circumvented that, was they stay as is, everyone else gets this added benefit.
Is our trash pickup guy, is he gonna do this, or is the city doing this?
Trash pickup guy will do this.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Those
With the caveat, the white goods, your steel goods, your ovens, refrigerators, those type of things, we're coordinating those. The trash guy will call actually at the Public Works, and we will take those because they have value to us, and it just takes up less space in their truck. So that's a seamless coordination.
At those other locations where you're gonna have a dumpster, though, I mean, if you only got 2 or 3 items in the dumpster, you're gonna pay a dump and return on a dumpster that don't have anything in it. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. In other words, if the apartments, if you got a dumpster in the apartments and it's only half full.
No, they already use a dumpster.
They have dumpster service now.
Okay.
So,
I misunderstood.
There's 15, I mean, I'm picking a number, but there's 10 or 15 apartment complexes around town where people, their only trash pickup is a dumpster service.
I got
Those people do not get anything changed. It's everyone else that uses curbside service.
Those individuals will still be
And they'll still get
served
it in April and
large
April.
trash twice a year.
Got it.
Correct.
Okay,
I got you.
so,
April and October.
Again, it's no cost change, and communities that do this, I think every community does it this way besides us locally. Pacific.
Effective date, did you say the effective date?
It would be
With
this
this-
month.
This month.
So as soon as you, I mean, if you choose to approve this at the council meeting, then it would go into effect this February. So that old hutch that you want to get rid of, you don't have to hold on to it till April. Some issues that I could foresee, just kind of thinking ahead here, table with 4 chairs, right? So is that 5 items or 2? See, those are the little bitty things that we got to work through.
What's the answer to that, John?
I don't know if I know that yet. I think that's 2. I think that's 2. And I think I'm going to be able to communicate that that's 2. But those are just the little bitty things that you have to work through. Because I can't pick every scenario up on trash, I can tell you that.
You can't.
It's impossible.
any questions, comments?
What about those who lose the amusement of watching pickers for that week?
There's a show on the History Channel.
Okay.
Yeah. YouTube is out there if you want to watch.
I make a motion to move to council.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Holtmeyer, to move this item onto council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you've moved it on. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Finance Department, Code Repeal Landfill Fees.
Mary?
Good evening. This code change just basically changes the landfill code. And we're requesting that it change from 20 to 30 days for payment of the landfill invoices. And basically recording it or considering it delinquent, which basically most of your accounts receivable is net 30 days. So we're just asking for the code to be changed from 20 days to 30 days in order for customers to have 30 full days to pay their landfill bill.
We have some major customers that have problems meeting the 20 days. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it's very
usually-
difficult.
Was it moved from 30 to 20 at some point, or just always been 20?
It's always been 20.
Okay.
I think it was wasn't it something to do with, I mean, former administration was looking at trying to coincide with utility.
Right.
Late payment fee, and we've
Right.
changed that too. So, I mean, but that's what they tried to coincide with at the time, I think, was to stick with that 20 days.
30 makes sense.
So,
But for accounts receivable, it just doesn't make good sense. And we tried it, and usually customers pay between 23 to 25 days. And so they get kind of upset with us.
You get a good customer and pays in 23 days, there's no reason for a delinquent.
correct.
Perfect sense.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
And we offer automatic bank drafting, which a lot of our customers have taken advantage of that. But there are some customers that, still don't want to do that and don't want to pay with a credit card. And so I just really feel that changing it to 30 days will help a lot of customers out. And typically that is what standard practice, business practice is.
And really no harm.
So, right.
Right.
Will that take care of almost all of them?
Pretty much. I looked through accounts receivable. I can't really do a lot of statistical information without going into everybody's account, but I just kind of flipped through the active landfill accounts, and there wasn't one customer that didn't have a penalty at some point in their account. So,
Is this an amendment to an ordinance?
Yes,
Right.
changing it from 20 to 30.
I make a motion.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a motion by Solentrub, seconded by Reed,
thank you.
to send this on to council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you sent it on. Thank you. This is our last item.
What was our last item? I don't know if any other department heads have
Is
anything.
there anyone else who would like to give a report? I think
Yes, Tom was gonna-
Tom was going to give us a report
Expected.
today.
Good evening, council. I just wanted to bring it to your attention, we had our year-end building report completed about a week and a half ago. And just wanted to make sure nobody had any questions. I also wanted to kind of just hit a couple of the highlights that we had. For last year, we did 76 new homes. We had 2 multifamily buildings, 55 residential alterations, 9 new commercial buildings, 38 commercial alterations, 545 occupancy inspections,
Wow.
and permit totals were 1,102. So, did anyone have any questions about the report or anything I can try and answer?
Tom, I appreciate getting that report. I found it very helpful as to what we've been doing and what you got. Same with Chief on the fire department and everything. Those kinds of things are, that's good.
Things you don't think about.
That's good info.
I got a code question.
Yes.
Is anybody in the city allowed to have an outdoor burning wood furnace?
Outdoor wood.
You know, the
burning
furnace that a lot of people have in the country where they got furnace?
I've never seen one here in town, actually.
I just had somebody inquire about that.
I would have to look and see if there's an actual ordinance against that.
Okay.
I honestly don't know because nobody's ever called me and asked about it, so.
I don't
But I
know
could
if
look
it's
into
in
that.
the amendments or whatever. I don't know.
I don't remember seeing it in the amendments.
There is a restriction.
Yeah. I'm, really, just a question.
I'll get back with you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll have
just
to.
email
research
me
that.
or.
Yeah.
Sure, whatever.
Does anybody else have any questions?
No, good job, Tom.
The report is just, we'll ask for you to accept it into the minutes at the council meeting, or whatever, but since Tom was here, I just thought it'd be a good time to go ahead if you had any questions or anything.
Yep,
Thanks, Tom.
great, thank you.
Same way with Fire Chief, if you have any questions on his annual report.
Good evening, council. Yeah, in your packet this evening, there's a fairly lengthy report, actually, kind of highlighting the achievements of the past year. A couple of the big ones I want to point out is the reorganization of the fire company. It distributed the workload fairly substantially. We're building a management team there and changing the organization fairly substantially. If you look at the report, there's a piece of it in there talks about in-station hours. And if you look at prior to last year, there was sub 1,000 hours of in-station documented hours. As of last year, we documented 10,000 hours in the stations. I can tell you that number's low on 2 regards. One, we didn't start keeping track of it till the mid portion of the second quarter. And so our goal is 17,500 hours. And you're going to say, where did you come up with that number? That's essentially 2 man years. And so when we have ISO comes out, if we can demonstrate and show that we have these documented hours, it's basically the equivalent of 2 paid personnel being on staff constantly. So that's where we're starting at. Obviously, we're going to try to push that. Last year, we hit the 10,000 training hours also, despite COVID. I'm very proud of the group that they put in that many hours for training. That is despite the fact that our Fire One group was actually a little smaller internally. So our internal training was a little smaller. We had some external departments, other departments come over to do training with us. But we still managed internally to get 10,000 hours documented within our organization. That doesn't include the hours that I'm talking about, doesn't include on-the-scene hours or hours of other activities. When I say other activities, public relation events where we're doing things with the Parks Department, with the kids, we're giving tours, that doesn't count towards that. So there's another about 5,000 hours, almost 5,500 hours of activity hours. So when you look at it, the group's putting in a lot of time. So that was a couple of the highlights of the past year. We did run 685 calls. Vehicle accidents are still leading the way. The extrication tools that we purchased recently, we had 14 extrications last year. A couple of them were very severe, very significant vehicle extrications. So we did have that. We did have 5 fires. All of the fires last year, interestingly, were in the city. So every fire that we stretched hose, went inside, guys took the air packs and went inside. All 5 of them were in the city. We had no structural fires in the district, which I thought was rather strange. If you look back in years past, if we did an analysis over a 10 or 15-year period, you would actually see that trending down. And we're running somewhere between 4 to 6 fires a year. I associate a lot of that with the occupancy inspection program that Tom reported on earlier. That has had a major impact on the number of fires we've run. One of the fires we did have was back in October. We did have a person came in. It was a very strange call the way it was received. There was some mix-ups in the front end. Our dispatch center actually received a call from the neighbor. The neighbor called it in off of a smoke alarm sounding, heard the smoke alarm called, saw smoke. There was a woman trapped in that building, and we were able to effect a rescue that evening on that lady, who has made a complete and total recovery. So we've had some very good successes this past year. From a financial standpoint, we were able to put $150,000 in the reserve. That was actually somewhat planned, and the reason we're planning it is we went ahead and did a budget amendment for $90,000, you may recall, or $95,000 to replace the generator headquarters. There's also switchgear at Station 3 that's being replaced. We're waiting on parts. Lead times are terrible, as you're all aware. We ordered it. We were talking about it this morning. We think we ordered it in August or September. We still haven't seen the parts for Station 3. So right now that station does not have generator backup. But that was sort of planned to move that money forward to be able to do some bigger projects this year. Any questions?
I think I read you had 95 firefighters and 15 new members. Is that
Under
right?
2 years. We have 14 under 2 years, and we brought on another one last week, and we have 2 more pending.
How long of a period does it take before they're a full firefighter?
Typically, I would say about 2 years to get them fully trained into, it's a twofold training. One is the certification training. Since 1991, we've required all firefighters in Washington within the first year. You had to have Firefighter 1 certification through the state of Missouri. There were some exceptions to that. We were extending people. The way the firefighter program has expanded and the more requirements that have been placed into the certification, now instead of taking 1 test, you have to take 3 or 4 tests in order to become a state certified firefighter. So that's 2 days of testing because you're only allowed to take 2 a day. So that's expanded that out. So the amount of training they're required to take, it's really kind of morphed into a 2-year program. The other piece of that is indoctrination and orientation into our organization. So kind of molding them into the culture, it takes about 2 years. And the nice thing I'd like to report is that there's a lot of families and a lot of ties in the Washington Fire Department. If you look at the Frankenberg list, when I go to Ace Hardware, for example, and make a purchase, I'm at the bottom of the Frankenbergs. There's like 7 of us. So just go to the bottom of that list. You know, there's a number of Eckel camps. There's a number of also in-laws relations, Holtmeyer, Schmitz, et cetera. And so there's some lineage there. The thing that I'm happy to report is we're getting folks that were not necessarily from this community becoming part of the organization, and we're getting people that are not necessarily family as part of the organization. Rick Hodges, for example, Hodges Badge Company came from Rhode Island, ended up moving to Augusta, moved into Washington, and we brought him into our department. And Rick is now lieutenant out at Station 6 running that station out there in Campbellton. So we've had a lot of successes that way with outsiders. And the interesting thing is they actually wrote an FAQ book. I think it's about 17 pages long of here's the things that you need to know but nobody told you. And it was fascinating stepping back and looking at it from their perspective. I just assume when I say go to Station 4, they know where it's at. They're like, well, you're reporting to Station 4, Captain Frankenberg, another Frankenberg, obviously. And they go, where is that? So we had to take a step back, and it was good that some people kind of brought it to our attention. But organizationally, those are the types of improvements internally. We're working on the recruitment side, but we're also working on the retention side. The school district just announced a joint program, a partnership with the city, that fire department, we're working with them, and we'll be bringing information to the council on the fire sciences program through Four Rivers Career Center. The school board has approved that. That's been in process since about 2009, and so Andy's finally really gotten it moving. He got it approved. I believe he's working on all the funding now, and so we're working through the final details, how to bring it in here. And that fills a void twofold. There is a career firefighter and really public service. If you talk to the police chief, he'll tell you too, recruiting people. You talk to Lisa, recruiting dispatchers is tough, recruiting police officers is tough, and recruiting firefighters is getting tough. I've heard of career positions in the county where there's 2 positions, they get 3 applicants and throw all 3 of them out. It used to be there were thousands of people to take tests, now you're lucky to get 60. And so the number of people going into this profession has really dropped down. And so this fire sciences program that VOTEC is putting together is going to be an awesome addition. It's one of the first in the state. So we're excited to see how it takes off. And we'll be bringing more information to the council to flush that out.
Will that program, do you anticipate that program will include the certifications, the firefighter 1
It'll
that
get-
you mentioned, or prepare them for that at least?
Absolutely. So the curriculum they're being taught is the Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2 curriculum over a 2-year period. And so in addition to the Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2, they're also going to get incident command, national incident management. We're proud in the school district about communications, telecommunications piece of it, and then law enforcement, criminal justice piece of it as well.
What's the best number, Tim? Where do you want your census to be? How many active? Or maybe the question is, where do we need it to be?
My first goal when I took over, at one point in time, I was our secretary of the fire company, and so I was responsible for badges. At one point in time, we were down into the low 60s. My goal was to get back up to the 100s. Now that we're teetering on 100, now I want 120. I'm getting greedy. Now I want 120. We got a neat group right now where we have some senior people that are doing a fantastic job mentoring. They're also available during the day to get other things done. They've got a multitude of talents. Our day room, for example, headquarters, if you walk in there, it's a totally different color. It's totally different furnishings. That was made very specifically to do that, to make that feel at home so people would want to be there. And occasionally you got to make a phone call and say, okay, folks, it's 11 o'clock, time to clear out. You know, it's so it's a matter of balancing it out. We got high school kids. That's the other thing that's helped out is we hook them young. So we get them before they get into some other activity. As Sandy mentioned this morning with the ROTC, the Master Sergeant says the Washington community and volunteerism is unbelievable compared to other places. And we're very fortunate here with the volunteers that we have step up. And once we get somebody hooked, we pretty much have them.
One other question, how are we getting along with all the false alarms? I know you run a lot of alarms and a lot of them all aren't active. Do you have any perspective on how you're going to approach that?
Couple ideas, actually. Nationally, about 99.6 of all automatic alarms are false. So there's a couple things. One is, and false alarms are attributed to one of 3 things: inspection, testing, or maintenance. So it's either how it was installed, how it's inspected, or how it's maintained. We've worked, at one point in time, we were hovering around 900 calls, a little bit north of that. And so we worked with certain businesses and we were targeting. Targeting is a bad word. We would focus with that business and have an education say, what can we do to help you to get them down? And so we would meet with those businesses. Some businesses would get letters saying, we've run way too many alarms. Every time it rained, there was a particular retailer, every time it rained, our guys knew where to go. They'd open the front doors. They wouldn't even talk to each other. They would just walk to the ladder, go up to the roof, go to the left, and they knew it was that HVAC unit every time. And so at some point in time, we said enough's enough. And so we'll if you have to enforce it, we'll enforce the code, but we'd rather educate business owners. And there's been a number of commercial business owners in the city that have been very willing to work with us. They see the hassle it causes, plus it's an interruption to their business. So if we can educate them and provide that information, we can save them the time and money on that as well. So to answer your question, how we're going to address that. So we have been in the past, but that's typically the people that are running 5, 6, 7 a year. What we're wanting to get down to is where we're not running any of those false alarms. And how we're going to have to do that is through an inspection program. And so we've kicked around commercial inspections for a while. Commercial inspections need to focus on the highest life hazard and work to the least life hazard. And so you look at the least life hazards, factories, industrial, there's typically 0 deaths in those types of environments from fire. And so when you look at it, it's the residential, we have to work on schools, places of assembly, and we'll work down the line. But those problem alarm systems are the ones that we focus on. We have one business now that we've ran 6 or 7, and we sat down with the manager and said, what are we going to do? And that management has actually went after their leadership and said, this is unacceptable for running these folks out all the time. So we're working through it, but the next piece of it is inspections, and that also goes into the ISO goals that came out of the 2018 study, where the goals and objectives for that. And so pre-planning and inspections is something that we have a known gap that we have to close up. Okay. Part of the problem we're having, I'll be completely honest, is software. Finding software, and people are buying each other out, so it's a little tough in the software world right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, on Joe's point, I know it's been a while back, so correct me if I'm wrong, but we instilled a penalty to those businesses for a third time. Is that working? Is that enforcement working, or is that not? Is there something else we can do on our level to help?
It's not enough of a financial burden for some to be a deterrent. A lot of them are caused unnecessarily. We had a couple of gentlemen smoking in a hallway the other day on Elm Street. That alarm system did what it was supposed to do. So we had a manual pull station at one of the nursing homes recently. The alarm system did what it was supposed to do. Unfortunately, some of it's education of the general public as well. But to answer your question, Jeff, I don't think the alarm ordinance isn't enough of a deterrent, and that's something we have actually talked about in our code review committee, is reviewing that and looking at that to make that a number that won't offset some of the costs. Every time the truck rolls out the door, there's a cost associated with that. So looking at what is the cost and how do we offset that?
And what did you say one time what that cost was every time the truck rolls?
Roughly, it's about $600
Yeah,
every
that's
time
what I
truck
thought.
door goes up and truck goes out. It's about $600. And let the cost of the vehicles and the cost of the maintenance and the breakdowns, that's about right.
Mm. All right.
If it's something we need to revisit, let us know in the future. That's something that, it needs to be, we did it as a deterrent, but if it's not the right dollar amount, education and all that kind of stuff is probably more of an impact, no doubt. But if it's something we can do on our end, that's.
We've also started applying, we have big stop sign stickers we started sticking all over alarm panels, and basically says stop and call our communications department, let them know you're working on the system. And that actually has seemed to help. We don't run as many false alarms with maintenance companies on the scene.
Right.
And so that's something very positive.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Is there anyone else? Okay, so we'll do a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion by Patke, seconded by Pettit to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. So. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, please.
Regular meeting of Washington, Missouri City Council, Monday, February 7th, 2022, 7:10 PM. Heydrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Here.
Pettit?
Here.
Reed?
Here.
Scornia?
Here.
Solentrop?
Here.
Wessels? Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will all the council members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the council meeting dated January 18th, 2022? Heydrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Patke?
Yes.
Pettit?
Aye.
Reed?
Yes.
Scornia? Solentrop?
Yes.
Wessels?
Having read the minutes, are there any questions or comments?
If not, I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Heydrich, seconded by Holtmeyer to approve the minutes from our last meeting dated January 18, 2022. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the minutes. Thank you.
Approval and adjustment of agenda, including consent agenda. You have the 2018 landfill tickets destruction request and the fire department record destruction request.
Okay, are there any questions about the items on the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Patke, seconded by Heydrich, to approve the items on the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the items. Thank you.
Report of department heads. You have the 2021 building report.
I think you got the citizens' comments first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I passed that. Thank you. Citizens' comments.
Okay, is there anyone here who would like to address the council on any item that is not on the agenda? Okay.
Hello, my name is Kelly Brinkman. I'm a resident of Washington. And I was invited to be a part of the Community Aquatic Advisory Team in years past based on my experience as a swim coach for Borgia girls and utilizing the pool a lot as our family. I want to ask the council to implore the city staff to reconsider plans to continue the use of a pool punch card system again this year. To give you a bit of history, in 2019 and in previous years, it was $100 for, let's say, a family of 5 to purchase a pool pass that could be used without limitation for the duration of the summer. In 2021, with the opening of the new pool, a punch card system was offered, allowing 20 punches for the purchase of $100, limiting their visits to 20 total punches for that same dollar amount. For example, in 2019, that family of 5, $100 used the pool all summer. In 2021, family of 5 spent $300 to $400 to utilize the pool to the same fashion that year. I'm asking, what is the rationale for the decision? The rationale, as I understand it, is to survey area communities, as it has been in years past, and would seem reasonable, but that notion to assemble a comparative analysis does not appear to be meeting the needs of the residents, regardless of their income. For example, we should not be denying the use of physical fitness facilities to all residents and maybe make it accessible only to the middle and upper middle class who can afford to use our public pool here in Washington. I think we can do better. We can do better as a city to serve our citizens. And although, as I did visit with Mr. Dunker and also Mr. Lamb, looking at attendance numbers in years past may not be an equal comparison from last year, it being a brand new pool, people being cooped up due to COVID limitations and not even be able to leave their homes. Certainly the new pool was welcome to be used. Those attendance numbers from last year should not be compared to attendance numbers for previous years because of those two reasons. And I think that's important to consider. I think we can do better for the people of Washington. Do you have ideas that you would like to share?
What is your proposal, Kelly, that what do you think would fit the best?
My proposal would be keeping an eye on those that maybe could not afford to be at the pool at the current condition. So to offer instead a pool pass, and I would understand if the price needs to increase from $100. I think historically it has perhaps been at that number for a number of years. So to increase it even a bit to 125, 150, to allow a certain set of people that are considered a family to use the pool at that rate for the entire year. Now, I did visit with Mr. Lamb and also his staff as they have, served families so faithfully. Part of the problem can be to identify who exactly is that family group. But they do have those designations on the application for a pool pass currently. They could continue to use those and ask people to use only those people that are directly related, living at the same residence, I believe are their two qualifiers.
We discussed that through Parks Department and through Aquatics Committee, and it was exactly that. If someone brings their 2 kids, a mother brings her 2 kids and 2 additional kids, is that considered family, or that they have to pay for the 2 additional kids? And that was I think in my interpretation, that was the best change. The punch card will allow you to use the punch card those 4 times and pay for those kids. And if the punch card ran out, you could buy another punch card. And so essentially, not to discriminate, not for a family not to use the pool for the rest of the year, but many times it's not just a family of 4 walking in the gate, it's a family of 4 plus 2 kids, or a family of 3 plus 1, or whatever it may be. And it was a matter of the punch made sense to include everyone rather than just a family and then have to send money with a neighbor kid along or whatever it may be. So,
and I could see how you reached that conclusion. Do you also see my comparison in that the cost for the same family from 2019 to 2021 is 3 and 4 times as much to participate in the aquatic activities?
If they use it that many times, you're saying, right? I can definitely understand the argument, no doubt. And that was not taken lightly. I mean, I think we discussed that at length in Park Board and Aquatics Committee for that matter, and Wayne can attest to that.
I think the contention was to try the punch card system for 1 year. And I think it's to the point where we need to really take a hard look at that and say, is that really meeting all the needs of all the residents of the city? My heart goes out to those families who say we no longer go to the pool because we can't afford it. And for example, the Early Learning Center, as a part of the School District of Washington, has a sliding scale. The YMCA has a sliding scale. If you'd like to participate, perhaps that's something that the city could look at to make that available. There's no scholarships for folks that cannot afford to attend the pool. And we know that perhaps those kids that maybe their parents are not home in the summer and they need something constructive and productive and healthy to do, they should have that option here in Washington.
Kelly, quick clarification. Is the punch card about, and these aren't your words, so I'm sorry, is the punch card in itself the wrong structure, or is it the number of visits that actually causes the issue?
I think
is it both?
It's the punch card associated with the dollar amount.
Okay, thank you.
So perhaps if the punch card were larger, and that dollar amount could be looked at.
Right.
I'm not sure that we've hit kind of a home run. I think it's still in between.
Because I mean, to your point, like I do remember the discussion, and it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But as you spell it out and compare it, I'm like, oh, that's pretty significant.
I was wondering though too, with just as you're saying, last year was probably atypical.
Yes.
Because of people had to wait 2 years to use a pool and so forth.
Right.
And so I'm wondering if 1 year's data is sufficient. I can remember when it was brought to us and everyone was discussing it, I understood, hearing from the Parks Department too, that just the maintenance and the staffing and everything else, and I'm not saying it has to be a break-even situation, but it was costing a lot extra above and beyond what was collected from people that coming into the pool.
Right.
So the city was contributing a great deal to it, which is fine. But I'm wondering though, if last year was not a typical season, and we've only had that 1 year with it, I like what you're talking about, in some sort of a scale, but I'm not sure we've got enough data based on that one abnormal year that we had.
Sure. And Mr. Wessels, to be forthright, I'll let you know there's another wrinkle that perhaps you're not aware of. In 2019 and in previous years, a family pass was considered up to 8 people or something. So you could often add your neighbor to that. And so comparing that information to what we're looking at now is not apples and apples. It's like apples and bananas. So I agree, perhaps 1 year is not enough information, but yet is that enough? Is it good enough to exclude some of our residents of the city to try it another year and to exclude them just to gather more data? Or are we more interested in serving the people of Washington?
I think what we could do is Wayne could go ahead and give you a report from last year, those same numbers, at our workshop, maybe in the first one in March. But just to give you some idea, just for the general public, we had operated at a deficit with the old pool up to around 130,000 a year, correct? And so even with this first year being possibly atypical, obviously, because it's a brand-new pool, you had a whole year of people not being able to go to the pool, et cetera. I get all that. But we still, the city was in the red this year, I believe, 45,000. So those are the numbers of what the city, so it's not a break even. I just want to make sure we're still a long ways from breaking even.
Sure.
As far as that goes. And I think when the park board looked at it, I remember one park board member looking at it saying, well, what's the cost to go to the theater? What's the cost, et cetera. And they also looked at what is the neighboring community charging, because I think in years past, we were losing probably people because our pool was outdated. They'd go over to Union because theirs was a little bit newer, et cetera. And I think with our punch card, and they also run a punch card system, and that's the other thing that I think the pool committee wanted to stick and be consistent with. If they were using that, that should be the same model that we're doing. They charged, and they made the conscious decision to do $1 more and than what Union was doing on their punch card system. So those are some of the thoughts and process that went into trying to determine how many. I would also say this, I would be afraid of after the first year, and we'll see what happens this year as far as attendance goes, but we did have days where people didn't get into the pool. Due to the fact that there were so many people there. So I guess there would be a concern with, I don't know what your capacity is, and et cetera. So I don't, that could be a limitation too.
Sure, and there were some days where it was closed due to capacity.
Correct.
And so those folks could come back in the afternoon, kind of try again. So one of my thoughts, Mr. Lamb, was it the aim of the city to actually make money on the pool?
No.
Okay, so even
Never.
from its early planning.
There's no such thing, and if any community tells you that they do, I'd like to see it.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that we're going
Right.
back to the beginning. So
Yes.
if you're saying we're still operating at a loss, that sounds like that's been the plan all along.
That is, there's not, I don't think, like I said, I don't think there's a break-even facility here that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Or anywhere
So
near.
therefore, that could maybe be taken off the table because our plan is to not make
Correct.
money on the pool.
It's how much
which
do
is
you
a-
want to be in red?
Right, which is a business decision, however you've decided it could, right? And I would also say if Washington is only charging $1 more for a pool pass and the Union pool is outdated, maybe the solution lies there in that we charge a little bit more for a pool pass that would allow unlimited use for the year. That 125, 150 is sure cheaper than 300 to 400. Maybe that could be something to look at.
I think it'd be best if we could go ahead and give a report back to you at the first meeting in March, and we can really look at the numbers and see if the council feels that they would like to go ahead and change the way we're operating. I will tell you that last year was the most successful year in the history of the city's pool.
As it should be, you built a great pool.
So.
And people were glad to be out again. So any other questions that I could help offer?
Have you brought this up to the park board at all?
No, not to the park board. I've visited with Mr. Lamb and Mr. Dunker in years past and even recently, so it's not a matter that was brought to the park board. Would you suggest that I visit with them?
Can't hurt.
Maybe
They've heard, I would say this, it's not uncommon, they've heard these requests, I think, because we did receive a lot of calls the first year before it opened. with regards to not having the family pass, and they wanted to know, why, et cetera. And so I think we offered a discounted punch card last year, being the first year, up until the first weekend. And then, that's, like I said, I think I've given all the reasons why they came to the conclusion of using the punch cards only.
And it was one discounted card?
Yes, there was.
If you purchased it before
Yes.
that particular time
You could
part?
buy more than one.
So.
I don't know if you could you buy more than one punch
No,
card before
no,
you could
couldn't.
only do one?
I exclusively said, how
Okay.
many can I buy?
Oh, gotcha.
And you couldn't buy them at that discounted rate. And the other thing to consider is that the punch cards expire. So I know that that's neat and tidy for a business and for a city to say, well, that's all revenue from last year. But what that does is it also leaves families, maybe holding 3-4 punches that they've paid for and they can't use again this year. So instead, now that we're on an electronic system, that could be opened up to say, you know what, we're going to honor that and we're going to let you use your punch card from last year. And people are able to reload the card at the pool, which is really helpful. In years past, that's not been the case. You had to truck it on down to the park's office and pay again. So, well, thank you very much for listening. I sure hope that we can do better for all the residents of Washington. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council?
Hi, Council. I'm Carrie Klinke, 1090 Caroline Drive. I just want to address the trash that's going to be on the agenda today. I really think that the bulk pickup twice a year and the monthly, it's kind of a 6 to 1, half dozen to the other. We're still going to have trash on our curbs. But in talking to citizens and thinking about it, there are a couple of things that I just want to bring to your attention. I'm sure you guys have thought of this. However, when we have the twice a year pickup, we have trash, the piles, we've got the pickers, we've got all of that, and kind of the eyesore for that week. Consider that we are now going to have that eyesore through those neighborhoods every single month. And is that what we want people to see when they drive through our city? So that's my main thing. 2, it feels like you're penalizing families. 12 items, I don't know that we've ever had more than 12 items at any one pickup, much less combined. But just concerns that came up, do we want the big trash out there every month when people come through our city? That's it.
Okay.
2 items.
It'll be
Mary.
limited to 2 items each
Right.
time.
So if you have a washer and dryer out there, let's just say, that's a lot less bulkier than the pile.
Then a pile, and I get
Washer and
that.
dryer, couch,
Right. But it's still a couch on the corner and a couch and a washer and dryer and a whatever. I don't think everybody is getting rid of a washer and dryer every month.
right, and it's the day of your trash. So they're not gonna sit it out there on Friday.
Bet me.
I think the other caveat that we're missing is that it's the 4 washers and dryers at one residence as a pile. That didn't come from one house. That came from someone who has a rental property outside of the city limits, and they're bringing them there to get rid of. And the 6 mattresses didn't come from one house as a cleanup.
Right.
So that when I read it and discussing with John months ago, that's my take on it is no one's getting rid of 6 mattresses out of one household a year. It's coming from somewhere else, and we're providing a free service to our residents, and we're handling for people outside. And this is one way to combat that.
Right. And I get that. How many places are having 6 mattresses and 4 washers and dryers? Is it a third of the citizens that are putting out?
Well, I use the
that
example
many?
of 6 mattresses, but the piles at some people's houses aren't coming from that one house. You know what I mean? Not 6 mattresses only, but tables and chairs
Right.
and a hutch and a washer and dryer didn't all come out of that house. It wasn't sitting in their garage for the last 6 months waiting for this day. You know what I mean? It's one of those, sure, brother-in-law, we've got big trash pickup, bring it here and set it on the curb. The city will take it. That's what I think we are going to get away from.
It's not that we we don't track those things. It's difficult to track those things. I mean, we do, the other issue we have is with the scavenging situation that we would have in these big piles
And then,
is, I mean, it probably twice a day during big trash week pickup is a resident would put their stuff out in an orderly fashion. A scavenging situation would occur and it's all over the place, right? So we come up, we don't pick it up, right? Who's at fault there? Well, the city shouldn't have to pick up your strewn trash. It was your trash sitting there. You come back and say, well, I'm not the one who went through it. You see how those things start to snowball, and then we get these issues. So not saying that that's the primary concern, but that was a concern that we were trying to address as well. I also, when I do go through social media at times, I try to stay off as much as I can, but when I do see those things, I do see a lot of when's Washington's big trash, and then I follow up a little bit, dig into that just a little bit, and those citizens aren't always ours. So how do I track that? How do I know that's the situation? I can't. But we do believe that this would combat that a little bit and still provide, we felt, a better benefit to each citizen by not having to hold on to those things for 6 months. Really, we did the same thing with the recycling. There was some concern about that, and that's actually panned out to be a fairly good offset. So it's not going to be perfect. There's no way we can make it perfect, but
Gary,
it's one way we could try.
I think just like this situation now, if what you're saying becomes, just a terrible case, we'll change it.
And that was my next question.
Yeah, we can
is
always
what would it
come back
take?
and look at it again, and we've changed it before. We could do
What does it take to change the contract back?
Yeah,
that was my follow-up question. Thank you.
It's a no-cost change, and I know our trash hauler's been very amenable to anything that we need to do to try to take care of us when we request something. So we did Union, I know it does this way, Pacific as well, and I think New Haven does as well. So it's not that this is a new concept. It's what these other communities, and I'm not saying we do it because other communities do it. It's a way to, we felt, provide a benefit. We're not trying to take anything from anyone. We're trying to make the situation better, really.
Okay. Like I said in the beginning, it's 6 one, half dozen to the other for me. I might be more apt to get the stuff out of my garage if I get 2 a week. Let's try that again. 2 a month.
2 a month.
So I just wanted to bring it. Those are some things that I had heard when I put it out there. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Okay.
Report of department heads, 2021 building report.
Okay, Tom has already given us the building
Yes.
report, so all we need to do at this point, if there's any questions or comments, and we can accept it into the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Hydrich, seconded by Patke, to accept the building report into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
2021 fire department report.
Same with the fire department report.
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Hydrich, to accept the fire department report into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
Ordinances and resolutions. An ordinance authorizing the issuance of the City of Washington's taxable tax increment revenue note Front and Main Redevelopment Project, Series 2022A, and authorizing certain other actions in connection with the execution and delivery of the note.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
Yes, good evening, council. On your agenda tonight is an ordinance to authorize the TIF note issuance for the Front Street development TIF. That is the development the redevelopment we approved via TIF with TIF Commission and Council approval in 2017. And as these projects progress and get to a certain point where they're either past halfway or get closer to the end, the developer is able to basically ask for a TIF note to pay off those bonds. So once that's issued, and per the agreement that we approved in 2017, the TIF note allows for $1.5 million to be paid out to the developer, $550,000 to be paid out to the city for public improvements. We've already spent our portion on the utility burial, sidewalks, and streetlights down there. And then now, as the tax increment comes in, 75% can go back to the developer to pay off this $1.5 million note, and then 25% back to refill our coffers, since we kind of took the money out ahead of time, and it'll refill back up, and we can put back into the district later. I'm here just to give a kind of quick overview of that and overview of the development agreement that was approved and where we're at, and then Andy Understall is here to give you a report looking forward of how they plan to, what the project looks like as it progresses and completes. So per the project development agreement from 2017, like I said, that was a 75-25% split, which actually is one of the better agreements for our 3 TIFs. That is a little bit higher percentage than we had on the other ones. There are 25 required residential units for the project and 7,000 square feet of commercial space that was agreed upon. 13 of the 25 have been completed and or at least under construction, and then the commercial space has not yet begun. That's at the corner of Main and Jefferson. So the assessed value of that property, the area in the TIF district, in 2017 when it started was $216,000, as you can see in the letter I wrote. And the projected value at the end of this project, we anticipated the projected value to be 1.7 million, or 1.8 really if you round up. And so that incremental increase there allows, that's what we're anticipating to be able to pay off the note and the improvements. Our current value, and this is 2020, the most recent data I could find, is $906,920, so just shy of $1 million. Keep in mind that 2020 does not include the largest building, which is under construction right now. That will be the building with the highest value. And so I think once you're able to put that into there, we're well past halfway. And the assessed value of the buildings that are completed have been assessed higher than what we anticipated back in 2017. Assessed values have climbed higher than we, our cost-benefit analysis for that was done on a conservative basis to be safe and make sure the project could work. I'm sure it's no secret to anyone. Assessed values, especially downtown, have gone up significantly in the past few years, partly because of projects like this. And so I think just from those numbers, we are on track to exceed our projected value when the project is complete. So if you have any more questions for me, otherwise I'll pass it over to Andy to talk about the status of the project and what's coming to wrap it up. All right, thank you.
Good evening. Andy Understall, representing Front Street Development. Yeah, as Sal said, on the project down there, we started building in 2018. At this point, we have 13 townhomes, or 15 townhomes completed and 2 apartments, and rehab the old number 4 Lafayette, which was the old La Dolce Vita residence down there. And currently under construction, we have Bricktown Flats, which consist of 10 condominiums on Front Street. That's the building that's going up now on the corner down there. We still have, we're working on developing the commercial building at the corner of Main and Jefferson, which will get started sometime this year, and it will be around a 15,000 square foot building. It includes 35 parking spaces, off-street parking with that project. And it'll have commercial on the first floor, and we're still debating whether it's going to be offices or commercial on the second floor, and then the third floor would be like two flats, 2 larger flats, like 2,400 square foot flats. So that would go there. So and with that being said, also in the project, the original Bowl and Feed store property, and then the property across the street, which was the parking lot on the west side, on the south side of Main Street, we included 9 additional units, which are not in the TIF, or we didn't come back to to renew the plan or anything, which which valued about 3.6 million additional building outside the TIF project. So it that promoted, what we from the TIF, that kind of promoted, these other units because we have a market for them, So it ended up, with the Bowl and Feed store not being able to save it at the time, you ended up, putting the new residents there. So when this project's complete, we'll have 40 to 44 residents, depending on what we do with the building at Main and Jefferson, in that project down there. Let's see what else we got here. I guess that's about it for that. So that's, that kind of sets the project. So, with Rhine River, originally when we built that, we had 15 townhomes there, 3 commercial buildings, and then we built 8 duplexes behind that in Cottage Park. And with those being added to it, we're over 60 residents built downtown total. So, in the future projects, we're going to complete the building at Main and Jefferson, develop 6 more townhomes at Main and Olive. We're working on that on the plans for that right now. We're working on the Pekka building, going to complete that, and that will also have 4 apartments in it and 5,600 square foot of residential on the first floor. And then we're also redoing the little house, it's the old brick building at 2nd and Market. It's going to be a house, there are residents. We're going to rehab the existing building and add on to it. So, and that'll be happening sometime this summer.
So did you say the Pekka building is going to be residential on the first floor?
No, I'm sorry, it's commercial on the first floor.
Commercial on the first
5,600 square foot of commercial, and then there'll be apartments upstairs.
Okay.
They'll have 4 to 5 apartments on the top floor. We're working on the plans for that right now. We're just trying to get all the structure stuff, all the tuck pointing, all those things done.
Andy, so the units that you're doing that are outside the TIF, those units, property tax and so forth, that will be collected by districts and so forth?
Yeah, that's all that will benefit, the city and all the other taxing districts. So it did, just saying that the TIF, besides the TIF, it also promoted, some other development there, which promoted more taxes.
Which is the whole premise behind the
Right.
TIF. That's why you do a TIF, that you
see that through
do
the
it and it
downtown.
spurs on additional development and I thank you for sticking your neck out all these years and taking on this project in our downtown, because none of that would have happened without housing downtown. And when we became a Main Street community, you guys have all heard me say this, but when we became a Main Street community, and you were there too, the original idea, Andy went to a National Main Street conference in Chicago, and we went to, there was a group of us who took the side trip one day to those 3 towns, Batavia, St. Charles, and something else, and they were showing us flats, or whatever they were called, and you were there that day and said, oh my gosh, and you were struck by what they were doing in that downtown, and you came home and started thinking about it. So don't ever say that it's not worthwhile to go to a conference.
No.
I mean, look what has happened.
Yep.
I was there. I mean, we were all like, really? Anyway, I mean, it was really good. And if you do remember, or I remember, that when Missouri Main Street first came to us and was trying to talk us into being a Main Street community, we were selected.
Right.
We were one of the 5 pilot communities in the state that were selected to be a Main Street community. And they told us we had to have a nighttime, for a downtown to be successful, we had to have a nighttime population. And I thought, well, we already have a nighttime population. People live up here, or whatever. And they said, no, a nighttime population with housing where people are living there. We're not talking like $100 apartments or, which is what all the nighttime population was. And plus I said, we have bars. There's nighttime people here for that, And they were like, no, we want people sleeping here and all this kind of stuff. You've created it for us. And our downtown is the talk of across the state of what we have all succeeded, but we needed someone like you to get the idea and to run with it and things like that. So thank you. It was 20 years ago, 22 now, that Gary and I did ours.
Yep.
And look what's happened since that time.
Well,
know,
it
it's
all
just
came up
amazing.
with the foresight of the city, you know, going forward with these projects, with the TIFs and the districts and stuff, you know, for all the improvements downtown. So it's not only what we do downtown, it's what everyone's doing downtown. Every building, you know, everyone's improving their structures and, and moving downtown. If something comes up for sale, it sells quickly and so there's a lot happening.
It's working just the way it's supposed to be working. So thank you.
And, I think some way, we need to get that word, when the TIF first started, that was really, the only objections came from these taxing districts who were felt they were being left out, or to some extent. I think most of them understood though. But I think that this should be touted, advertised and said, look now at what this assessed valuation is in that area compared to what it used to be.
Right, the other blighted properties around it are
Yes.
getting developed and everyone's, spending money on their property and the prices are going up and raising the taxes and that's, so it's like you said, the system's working, so.
Well, and also the idea of that we are doing the TIF, this is kudos to the city for using the TIF in residential.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a huge item there, as opposed to, using the TIF for redeveloping
A retail.
a cornfield,
Sometimes.
into retail, and then 20 years later, the tenant moves and you have empty buildings, where homes and residential continue to turn and things like that. So anyway, kudos to our city for, looking at it that way as well. So, anyway.
Anyone else have any more questions?
No.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Andy.
Okay, thank you all.
So we need a second reading, I guess. Are we ready to read this a second time?
An ordinance authorizing the issuance of the City of Washington's taxable tax increment revenue note, Front and Main Redevelopment Project, Series 2022A, and authorizing certain other actions in connection with the execution and delivery of the note. Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Solentrop?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Patke?
Yes.
Wessels? Pettit?
Aye.
Hydrich? Scornia?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance amending section 300.010 of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri, and adding thereto a new section relating to electric bicycles.
Introduced by Councilman Scornia. This is the item we talked about earlier, adding the electric bicycles. Any questions or comments?
An ordinance amending section 300.010 of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri, and adding thereto a new section relating to electric bicycles. Holtmeyer? Solentrop? Reed?
Yeah.
Patke?
Yes.
Wessels? Pettit?
Aye.
Hydrich? Scornia?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a contract agreement with Gerdner Contracting LLC for the 2022 Snap-Tight Culvert Lining Project.
Patke.
Introduced by Councilman Patke.
As discussed at the last meeting, this would align two corrugated metal pipes underneath the levee out on Westlink Drive. We did receive multiple bids for that. It came in well underneath the engineer's estimate. We did meet with Gardner to ensure they could get the project done in a timely manner. It's approximately a 5-day project to get this taken care of, and we would almost start immediately once the weather allows us to. And that would be for $102,500.
Any questions or comments?
John, we're confident in their work. We've seen some other work they've done.
To answer that, no, we've not.
We've had this problem before.
We have, yep. The situation here is a little different in the sense of that the subcontractor, Snap-Tight themselves, is I think they're 95% of the project, and they bid to every one of these contractors. So with $43,000 from your low bid to your second low bid, I think it's worth us to move forward with that. You're putting a pipe in a pipe and pumping grout into it. It's not like you're pouring concrete at an airport.
I get it.
Or the things.
We just been down this road before.
I know we have.
and then
Yep.
we've had problems.
It's
The
not
second
a,
one in line, he's, it's a local person, and
well,
This is
Gardner's
local
out of-
too.
Yeah, they are local. Yeah, they're actually out of,
Gray Summit?
yeah, Gray Summit area, correct. We met with them. What's that?
never heard of him. So.
I did not until the bid came in either. Again, it's like anything else, I didn't have a reason to reject it, and with the risk level being so low regarding the scope of work, I don't feel that we should go down that path with something like this. But you are, I hear you loud and clear.
It, like you're saying, I'm glad you met with him, because
Yep.
definitely raises a red flag.
I agree. We did meet with them. There was a bid bond, as all bidders do on substantial projects. They had the opportunity to forfeit that bid bond if they chose to. They chose not to. They wanted to do a good job for us, and we had a lengthy 45-minute conversation about that.
All right. Maybe they want to eat 43,000 to get in the door.
Maybe.
Could be. Let's hope.
Anyone else?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a contract agreement with Gardner Contracting LLC for the 2022 Snap-Tight Culvert Lining Project. Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Solentrip. Reed.
Yeah.
Patke.
Yes.
Wessels. Pettit.
Aye.
Hydrich. Scornia.
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a second amendment to exclusive franchise agreement for the collection, hauling, and disposal of residential solid waste and recyclables in the city of Washington, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtzmeyer.
As we discussed at the last meeting, and the last meeting in January as well, this would change the contract with Waste Connections to go from the bulk trash pickup once a week, or I'm sorry, twice a year bulk trash pickup to 2 items on your individual trash pickup per month. That would start in February. It is a no-cost contract amendment. And like I said, they would start this February on this. I would encourage anyone having issues with that to contact us so we can work through these things. As with any kind of wholesale change, there is a transition period. But we do feel like this is a benefit to every citizen and not have to hold on to those items. With 12 months times 2 items, that's 24 items a year. We felt that that met the needs of the majority of people in town. This does not change the way dumpster serviced citizens are being utilized. That still would be done the old-fashioned way of a week through there. The reason for that is we have no way to track 2 items on a dumpster item. One more thing, on your A and B units, so your first floor units and your second floor units, we actually went through and identified each structure that has that. They input those addresses into their computer software program in their trash truck. So for example, if a home looks like a single family, but it's an AB unit, really there's 4 items could be sticking out there. How are you going to manage that? That's another one of these places where I could see us having a little bit of a mix-up every once in a while, but that data has been provided to them. It is input in their GPS and their tracking software that they use. They do run cameras on the front and the back of every single trash truck. Whenever there's an issue with trash, we do a thorough review of what happened. And a lot of times what we find out is it's a little bit of the user error, and then we work through that with the trash hauling company as well. So we're very robust in how we handle those things.
Now, John, just to reiterate, because when we first started talking about this, we said you had to call and tell them you're going to have things out there.
No.
No more, right?
That is not the case.
Okay.
It is
But I
not.
know
And there's no $25
In the
fee
beginning, we
either.
talked about, not the fee, but we had to call and let them know. We were, when we first started talking about this, that's the way it was going to be.
That is not the way we're doing it.
Awesome.
And I guess just for clarification, John, just since he went down that path, if you choose not to want to wait till the end of the month, can you call them up
Yeah.
to make arrangements and still
They'd
pay
be
the
mo-
first, second, or third weeks?
They'd be more than happy to service your residents for a fee whenever you so choose.
In case you can't wait 4 weeks, before.
But then
They do have
Well, I know we talked about that.
We did.
And there's a charge.
Came in.
That is not the case, though. And I would also add that if somebody does see a City of Washington vehicle picking up a white good, which would be an oven, a refrigerator, those type of things, we do provide that service our people do, because we actually get revenue off of that, and it's a coordination thing for us. So we've worked that communication out with Waste Connections and our street department. So if you see those things happening, that's by plan. So this has been, I mean, this is kind of the last step, I think, in this transition. I mean, this has been a long time coming, and there's always issues. When you got 6,600 stops in a week, you're always going to have these flyer situations. But again, we look for patterns of failures, and we work through them. So, like I said, keep me in the loop on what you're seeing on the streets.
Just one other thing, since we're talking trash. If you could,
Trash talk.
yeah, do some trash talk, like Mark said. I've had some of his residents in Stonecrest complaining that oil at every stop, at every house, they're dripping a lot of oil out of their trucks.
Okay.
I know up in my neighborhood, there's a lot of oil, but my old beat up street that you won't replace, it's just like adding, it's helping it,
It doesn't meet that rating yet.
And mine's just cracked.
Edward Place is still like in 2028, right?
Mine's
However it rates.
Mine's just cracked up asphalt. It's not high rent concrete. So, but I had some people complaining about that.
Yeah, I can address that. Yep, I can definitely address that, with them and let them know that we're getting that concern and complaint. I can do that.
I mean, I understand trucks leak, but there's,
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking.
I've got it more where it looks like it's trash residue. It's leaking from the front of the trash truck, and that leaves a stain on the street also.
We have provisions
On
in
my
our-
nice concrete street, it's nice.
See, you got the high rent concrete. Mine's just beat up, ripped up.
Boys.
Wow, wow.
In my neighborhood, they blame it on my old trucks.
But you can tell this is oily because you can take and throw water on it. It's it's oily. So it's
All right.
This is coming from Ward 2. Just,
All right.
We can work through that. Look, or we can at least. They don't want to lose oil in their trucks either. I could.
I do want to give. I would like to give kudos to John on this, because it's not been easy to switch a service that was 30 to 40 years, where we picked up the trash, and then all of a sudden now change it to a contractual hauler. Worked with them. The amount of hours that he spent on the phone to make sure that this went as seamless as it did, and then providing this, I think this is going to be, our residents are going to be very happy that they're going to be able to go ahead and set these things out at no cost and on a much more regular basis. So,
I want to thank John, too, for handling very well a construction waste situation where the cameras on the truck said that the individual was not quite telling the whole story. So, and you handled it very well, though. I appreciate it.
you might want to let them know that there are cameras on the truck.
Yeah, this one found.
Front and back. And there's GPS, so I know exactly where they are in front of your residence at any given moment. So
He swore he didn't do it. He called me up and he said, I did what you told me, and they didn't take it, everything else. So I let John know, and he checked with them, and they had the cameras. And he tried to cheat and throw in some extra construction stuff. It's on camera. I called him back. I said, man, you're on camera. You can't do that.
thank you all.
Okay.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a second amendment to exclusive franchise agreement for the collection, hauling, and disposal of residential solid waste and recyclables in the city of Washington, Missouri. Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Solentrip? Reed?
Yeah.
Patke?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Pettit?
Aye.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance repealing section 140.030 and section 220.015.A.4 of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri.
Can I make one quick comment that should say, and amending section 220? We went through a number of iterations of this, and somewhere along the line that got dropped out. It says it correctly in section 2, but the title should say, and amending section 220.
Patke.
As corrected.
Whatever it is.
Introduced by Councilman Patke.
Mary discussed this. This, I believe, changes the timeline to make payments at the landfill from 20 to 30 days. I think what we ran into issues with some of our high-volume trash haulers that would bring things in, and they'd have these pretty expansive, or pretty large, expansive is not the word, pretty large late fees that we would be constantly writing them off in order to keep operations going, which, like Mary said, 23 to 25 days is the norm. So this just cleans that up.
Any questions or comments?
So should I read it incorrectly the second time?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
An ordinance repealing section 140, excuse me, .030 and sections 220.015.A.4 of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri. Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Solentrip? Reed?
Yes.
Patke?
Yes.
Wessels? Pettit?
Aye.
Heydrich? Scornia?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Mayor's report?
As noted on your agenda, our next meeting will be Tuesday, February 22nd, due to the President's Day holiday the day before, so we'll be meeting on Tuesday the next time. I'd also like to just comment, this weekend I attended the JROTC Military Ball, which is part of our ROTC program at Washington High and Borgia and some surrounding schools as well. It's a really great program. It was a nice evening seeing those young cadets in all their uniforms and things like that. So it was a very nice evening, and it's a great opportunity for a lot of students here in our community to have that. Also, since we met last, there was a great article about Wayne and his celebrating his 3rd year as our Parks Director. So if you haven't seen that, that has been in the paper. And
Jerry Jasper.
yes, Jerry Jasper passed away, longtime Parks Director. He was 26 years here as our Parks Director. And of course, one of the bigger things he completed was the Riverfront Trail. That was a big project for him. So anyway, that's all I have.
City Administrator's report?
I do have a few items for executive session, but before that, I just want to shout out, I know they've received a lot of kudos from the citizens, but our street department, parks department, public works did a bang-up job on taking care of the snow that we had. We heard nothing but a lot of positive comments, and like I said, well-deserved, and so thanks to Tony and his team, they keep it managed.
Can I just take a minute to recognize Sherry? I think since we met last, the newspaper ran an article stating that she'd earned a certification from, I think it was the Missouri Municipal League. But anyway, it's just a lot when you're a working mother to pursue that.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And she watches Seinfeld.
Seinfeld. Why, that's prevalent.
Is that it, Darren?
That's it.
That's it.
Council comments?
Yeah, I talked to Tony just a little bit after the workshop, and he said that he received 4 bids on the grinding of the compost out to city.
And those bids were in line with what we typically see. It takes approximately $30,000 to do that grinding. That facility is open, to residents and non-residents alike. So we are working. I know the engineering department. We've been working pretty diligently on how do we use that mulch. It's not really mulch. It's more or less just grind up wood chips. But how do we take advantage of that and use that for other uses around the city? One that we are looking into is your landfill when it closes. The borrow areas at the Strickoff on their farm fields, we actually have to put topsoil on that. So one thing we're looking at is using some of that that grinding material and then combining that with some other organics to actually make topsoil to put out there rather than purchase it from somebody else and haul it in. So just some things that we've been working on.
Oh, good. Anyone else with a comment? Okay.
City Attorney's report, public vote on whether or not to hold a closed meeting to discuss personnel, legal, and real estate matters pursuant to Section 610.021 RSMO 2000. Bultmeyer.
Aye.
Solentrop.
Yes.
Reed. Patke. Wessels. Pettit.
Yes.
Heidrich. Scornia.
Yes.